They start screaming. We're streaming. Go to the right camera. There. There's a little bit high. There we go. We're up and running and on air. Let's see what we have here. Say I'm actually live. Live now. There. Make sure that is up and running. So, the other thing I have to check here is that I had that open. The joy of dealing with technology. Now, first of all, we'll double check that my chat link is working. Is worthwhile confirming. It popped up on there. Will it pop up on the screen? I'll give it a few seconds. Yes, it's there. So we have that. I have a wonderful hairdo for today. That's the dashboard. I want to get the right address. And we'll do some promotion here. Copy that. And we'll publish. Just get this stuff out on social media. People are bringing in their Christmas trees already. And finally, we'll head over to Twitter. And now we're going to drop that screen, drop that one. Hello, Glenn. How many subscribers are you up to, Glenn? It's that rocket approach there. I'm feeling intimidated that I'm just about to hit 400. Now, okay. Everybody's eyes are about, where did I put my glasses? There we go. Congratulations, 539. Fantastic stuff here. 5,389. I can read. Hello there. So what am I going to do today? I am going to be painting some of my resin prints. First trial here. Now, before I get into that, I'm going to bring up a couple of things. First of all, let's put this onto same screen so I can share it all out. And we have, here's our horse that I've been working on. This is within DAZ 3D. I brought up the neck and the head and the ears are pointed forward. So that's our main changes there. So, oh, and I added a tail. You can see it smooths in here. So those are the big ones. And I keep forgetting which way to navigate in this program. So I'm not going to worry about it. But anyways, that's DAZ. So I massaged this image. Giveaway anytime soon? I'm going to do it for 500. I haven't a clue what I'm going to do. I imported this into a few programs, and one of those being ZBrush, in order to give the horse some texture for a mane over the forelocks there, and on the tail, got that in there. But this didn't happen in ZBrush, it happened somewhere else. I clicked on a button, I don't know what I did, what button I chose, but I got this texturing to it. As I said, I haven't a clue where that came in. Yeah, I can't get quite. It does have holes, one in the chest and butthole. This is so air can go in one and resin come out the other. So it is a hollow model. And from there, I put it into the B9, and I turned on auto supports just to see what it would capture, and I deleted about half of them, and I should delete about half of these too. When I put it into Cura, there's supports, you know, quite a ways around. The legs are freestanding. I added some for the back of the knees. Auto support didn't do that. The tail got tons of support, and that was because of the texture. Same as the mane. Every little bump was considered. So that was a problem there. We came across those issues. So I tossed it into Cura. And, whoops, wrong one. And so within Cura here, you can see it move forward, you know, to the left of the print bed. And I keep getting confused left and right. This area is furthest away from the hinge. So I think they have back and front mixed up here. Because the way it comes out on the print bed is this way. So I think these are reversed. This is by the hinge, so it has the least amount of travel for the tilt, and so you get the least amount of peel force here. This has the maximum amount of travel. So I took that and I printed it out. So I got notices popping up here. So where is it? Hello, horse. Come on. So the one I've been experimenting with was this fellow here, and I printed out a couple of those. Now, one thing, I don't know if you can see it there, because it's in my house, it has animal fur on there already. So, and this is my new horse, and he's got some texture, and this is where I run into a challenge with the working with resins. And the problem is with these white resins. If I come over to this camera, and I need to fire up or move some information over to another screen here, so bear with me. There we go. Okay. With the cameras that I have, this is among larger type of models that I'll be building. Everything's smaller. So I'm going to have to play with cameras to come up with a way to deal with these close-up images. I got to keep them on screen and away from the graphics there, so that I can regularly have focus on these, and so you can see the detail, detail that we're working for. With this, another part of the learning process with the horse, you saw all those supports that I had on it all the way down the back. I found that with this material, it is easiest to do the cleanup here. Back here. This is the other side of the fact is I need to do a lot of my working with this on. It's easiest to do to clean up before you cure it. Now, some of these bumps are supposed to be there, but I just encountered one. This has since been cured in the light bucket. And I just want to see if it makes a difference here. Yeah, definitely, there's definitely quite a difference there. Here's another one that I can clean up. Overall, it did come in nicely. But I should be on, yeah, I got the right one here. It did come in nicely. It cured in my curing bucket. What I have on here is a handle blocking it. There we go. The way I have it work, now here's the lid, and I have a trusty paper clip hanging on here, a piece of thread hanging from it, and I just suspended it like that within the light bucket, and it cured. I left it in there for 2 hours. Not that I know it needed 2 hours, it just that happened to be when the documentary I was watching ended, and I pulled it out. So it's a 2-hour exposure on there. So the light bucket works, the LED bucket, and then we'll continue on with our goals now of what I have to do today. Since I have these guys, let's make sure I get them into the shot, so I don't need these for right now. Okay, work surface here, camera, work with me a little bit. There's 3 of my horses to work from. And then I have a couple of parts here that I need to work on as well. But I'm going to put the parts aside. Maybe I'll work with one of the rings. But these 2 horses don't have tails. Now, they'll work as background horses. It's not an issue. As if you see this guy come in, and with the tail, it looks much better. And the thing is, you can't see any detail from the mane, but I'm hoping that when I put some paint on here, I will be able to have that texture show. So that's the hope. But since I have these 2 to work from, I'll experiment with paints here. Now my goal is to be airbrushing, but I'm not airbrushing in here. So, oh yes, my sexy green glasses. Actually, that's one of the prints I have to do, is a hanger for the laser glasses. Not the magnifying glasses. One other thing, since I just noticed it, here I'll see if I can give you a shot. I'm going to move my camera around. All the nuts, bolts were, let's see, I don't know if you can see this. Everything in the moya was tested. Make sure it was tight, make sure it was solid. And right in the middle of that, right on the edge, above the roll of paper towel there, yeah, you can just see the speck. One of them has come out about 3 millimeters, 2 millimeters. So I'm going to go around and retighten everything on there. Part of the care and feeding, sorry about the motion sickness, care and feeding of a printer. So that I just noticed yesterday. So it's something that needs to be worked on. Just make sure everything's tight. But anyways, back to these guys. Here's part of my herd. I'm going to print 2 more. When you're doing these sort of displays on the layout, you rarely want to go with the even number. You want odd numbers of trees, odd numbers of animals, but that's what you want to do. So I'm going to print 2 more. I'm going to move the head around some more, play with the ears. One I want to do it is, you can control size within DAS. So I'm going to shrink, keep the legs nice and long, shrink down the body size so I can have a full. So we'll put a young one in there, see if I can get that much out of the DAS program, out of this model that I have. But that's the goal, and everybody's going to have a tail, and we'll get manes. So that's what I have, but since these guys don't have tails, I don't mind experimenting with them for painting. So what I have to work with the painting, as I said, I'm going to, my goal is to be airbrushing this stuff, and it's out in the workshop, and I can't broadcast live from there, at least not at this time. So we'll hold off on it. I absolutely love these types of paints. Valojo, I'm probably destroying that one as well. I'm told I pronounced Moe wrong as well. I know I spelled it wrong. I got that corrected, but I think I say it wrong, at least according to my daughter. She's nagging, so only for a few more weeks. And but so these I'll be moving out. These are, it's a weathering set, but a lot of the colors within this weathering set would be perfect for the horses. I might do a little bit of brushing with that set today. Now I just grabbed a bin of paints because, as I said, I'm here to experiment with. Well, the first one I'm going to experiment with, see if there's anything on here. I don't know how many of these are still made. These I love for the trains. These are Pantone pens. So if you're not familiar with Pantone, Pantone is a color standard. So if you have a Pantone, let's see, this is warm gray 6M, whether I'm in print, whether I'm getting a billboard made, what have you, this gray will always be the same if it's a Pantone color. I've seen some filaments marked as being Pantone, but I do not see the Pantone logo on them. This was 6 months ago or so, so I don't know if they truly were Pantone, and it'd be a challenge, I think, for the 3D printing, but it could be. But anyways, Pantone is a standard advertising when you're in production that you make use of the Pantone. Nice things about these is they're markers. So if this thing's still good, I'll just go underneath and getting some off there. It's kind of dry. I've had these for years and they went through the flood, so I might have to give it a bit of an alcohol bath. But I'm getting some color on there. See if there's life in any of these other ones. As I said, with the wonderful world of computers coming along, these went into decline. A little bit darker, so it's usable for this. I see there's no cleanup with these, so actually I'm going to do a test here. I can't make out the detail on that at all. So I think one of my learning points here is, let's see. One of my learning points is when I do something like the mane, I'm going to, if I want it visible regularly, just come off with water. Nope. How about alcohol? About time I change the alcohol on here. Yeah, it's coming off. I just wanted to do that to see if I could see the texture pop out on for this. So the answer was no. It all depends where these are going to be painted on. Will work fine. If I bring in, there we go. There. If I bring in my Fenley cow, this once again is from Woodland Scenics. When you feel it, there's very little texture to it. You do get a seam there. Really, what you're seeing is all paint. So for the details on this, like the others on here, well, you can see they made a mess. Either the pink went further than needed or the white didn't go on. But that was from manufacturer. I'll be able to do most of the details via painting. So just because I wanted to try something a little different, I brought some acrylics out. I never would think of using acrylics for detailed parts, but I have them here. So I have a couple of paints that I'll try. These are just mixtures, different types. We'll give it a go. We're here to experiment, and we'll see all this stuff. Anyway, I pulled out these are from Atlas, I think. These are your Atlas people. So if you want to see a human mixed in there, you get, I don't know, 50 or so figures. They are repeated in that, but it's an easy way to build a crowd. So, you know, once again, for the background, I don't have a problem with using these. They're cheap, easy, but for the foreground, that's where I want to actually be printing. Also, I have the challenge of I'm modeling in the O-scale stuff. I'm modeling pre-World War I. It actually may be turn of the century, so I might even go back a little bit there. So a lot of the outfits worn may not be appropriate. You know, for this one, you know, is the handbag there right? I have to look at the people look at pictures, and make sure I have something that is appropriate. So I did the experiment on here with the pens. I'll put some water out in the middle of this. Now, let's see what camera I'm on here. When you're painting, I haven't learned enough about our water here, but the water that you should use when you're painting figures, whether you're cleaning, thinning paints with it, what have you, you should be using distilled water. Where I used to be was on the eastern slope of the Rockies. We had incredibly hard water there, and so you get a line buildup on the models. Decals really bad at it. They seem to just bring that lime to the forefront, so you have to use distilled water for that. Here, that doesn't seem to be the problem. We do have silts in the water, though, and all sorts of chemicals, it seems like. So if you stay with distilled water, you know you're safe. So just your painting tip of the day. And just notice something here. The topic isn't right. So once again, okay, I know I have these. Oh, I'm wearing them. I can't find my glasses because they're in front of my eyes. I'll learn. and spelling. There we go. That should be updated now. And by the way, I am blown away by what's happened with the channel in the last week. I don't know what day it happened, but Joe Mike and Tarantella, hopefully I got his last name right, he's celebrating 6,000 subscribers, and the way he's running his contest is asking people to subscribe to 5 lesser known channels, and he listed my channel as one of them, and I skyrocketed in subscribers since then. So once again, thank you so much, Joe Mike. And now I know I have to have content out there for folks. So now that I've corrected that screen, we'll get back on over here. What paint am I going to try first? Now, some of the stuff, we had a member of our, this paint may not work all that well. Now there's some life in there too. I'll be able to thin it out. This paint I normally would not use. A jar of toothpicks, where are they? Any of you remember these? Look, this one doesn't have a logo on. A lot of them had little logos on. And I guess during the 60s, there was a company, and I don't know which one, when you bought their product, you got a little one of these. And so I ended up with a collection of them from my mom and dad. And they're fantastic for holding things. So what I need to do is clean up this paint some. But anyways, Rick from the museum, one of our modelers there, incredible modeler, fantastic painter. He made a lot of the structures that match buildings within town. Unfortunately, he passed away about a year ago, and we ended up with a lot of his stuff. This is one of the paints I got from him. There's actually a full box. It's like a liquor box, and that box is full of paints, and we have that at the museum. So I'm just going to grab some of this stuff, and I'm going to just use a little bit. I don't care that it's thick like this. This really, where I would use it the most is for scenery. It's a good scenery paint, but I just wanted to give it a try. I'll use this brush here. I have tons of brushes of all variety. I'm slowly finding them. I realized earlier on that that I'm getting paint everywhere. I realized earlier on today that as far as I know, I haven't painted anything since I moved to BC. Not model-wise. So there it is. I'll take, we got the horse here. I'll just try this on this side. And see, these are cheap paints, and that's why I like them for scenery. And the big difference between these paints and model paints, such as these guys here. There's the manufacturer on there, made in Spain. That's the Panzer series. These paints, the pigment is very small. So that's the big difference with that. I don't know what they'll be like. You know, you are getting some streaking on there. This is wet. We'll have it dry. So you could use it for patches. I'd prefer something a little bit darker. You always have to be worried about how dark you make things on models, because things always appear a little bit darker. That's why when you paint an engine, you paint it gray, you don't paint it black, because if you paint it black, it disappears on you. So, yeah, I'll let that go. And I'll try someone else here. So my expected process for dealing with these would be to airbrush on a primer, let that dry, and then go on with whatever colors I need for there. What else do I have here? That was the folk paint. And that is acrylic, and those are really cheap ones you get at the hobby stores. Next step up are these acrylics. Never been used. Much darker paint. And once again, I don't really need to get that. Don't need much. So what we're doing, this is raw umber. Raw umber, and once again off to the hobby shops and finding out what they have there. I don't have anything really appropriate here. We do have one store that carries this sort of stuff, but they're quite expensive. Where I used to be, I'd get my paints at a place like Michael's and just keep an eye on sales and go on here. This is a beginner acrylic, so it's the cheapest of the line. So we have our guy there, and where's my eyedropper? So I hauled out my stuff today, and it's already covered in dog hair. Yes, that's you. Max is asleep at my feet. Good, it's staying out there. I'll go to the other side and just try some of this. Once again, not intended for model painting. And it really doesn't like this surface. It needs a primer coat on there. Yeah, it doesn't like going on the resin at all. So for the acrylics, I'd say must have, and it's too dark anyway, must have a primer on there. It's not adhering at all. So that's that lesson right there. This is going to be the world's ugliest horse when I'm done. Actually, what I can do with this paint though, so I've taken the brush, cleaned a lot of that paint off. I can take some of this dark. This brush might not be the best one for it. Do a bit of dry brushing with it. Is it going to work for what I want to do? Not too far. Get most of the paint off. And I just want to see if this shows up at all. No. Getting a little bit off of it, but it won't work. Not the right paint for what we're doing here. And I'm going to turn the sound of my phone off to figure out what pocket I have it in. Oh, it's over here. It's not in a pocket. There we go. Let's turn the sound off. There, you can go over there. It'll vibrate like mad if something comes in, like an actual phone call. I can live with that. So what have we done so far? We've tried the two types of acrylics here. The folk ones that you get from Michael's, once again, very cheap ones, and next step up to regular painting acrylics here, tube paints. They don't want to stick to these models. So back into the bin, and what else did I have here? One of the darker ones from this. I love the names. Oh, this is burnt umber, also known as sombra tostada, which I guess is Spanish. So this one, one of the things I like about these paints is it's all gunked up at the top, which shouldn't be it. Probably from transportation. Could be a pressure change. Brought that about. Let's see what we got on here. But they're very neat to handle. You don't have a lid to deal with. You know, when you get your standard modeling paint here, this is polyscale. I don't think it's manufactured anymore, but you got a lid to deal with when you work on it. And you get this wonderful film on top, and you have dry paint on there. Now, with these paints, one thing people do, and you never really should do it, is I've had this for ages, is to shake these bottles. Because when you shake, you saw that layer of film you have on there, you're getting your paint mixed in with that film. Always stir them. So I don't know if I'm going to use one of these paints today. I might. We'll see what we pull out here. But yes, you never want to. Let me go to a different brush for this. You never want to shake them up. This is just a straw. So I love chocolate milkshakes. My body used to run on them. I'm much better now, much more controlled, but I keep the straws, wash them up, and then I cut a section of straw, and I use the straw both to stir the paint and then sort of to pipette it into the palette here. So what do we got here? We got I can put some fresh water there. Oh, I did already. Where's it? Oh. That's what I should do, is get in the habit of putting some fresh water beside each place to put some paint. So we we're back a little bit. There we go. I guess what I need to do is put a camera directly overhead now that I'm doing this sort of stuff in here. Learning lessons. Stir that up some. So this was raw, this is burnt. I'll take our course. Oh. I don't mind getting some paint on the hooves. This is a winner. This is doing what we want it to do. Now, I should go with the lighter color. Maybe I'll open up the airbrush set. But works. Now, one thing I did lose after the flood is all my stands for painting. I made a range, and basically it's a piece of scrap wood for a base, and then some of my own clothespins and reshaped clothespins for it. Not an original idea. I picked it up in one of the hobby forums. It did need a little bit of water there. So I think airbrushing this stuff on here will be fine. This is a darker color, so I can do another experiment with it. Okay, I would need 2 coats on this, so once again, really have to go with the primer on it. It's a little bit translucent, I think, but they will come through nicely. Once again, going to our friend over here, and I'm going to put on some eyes for this. On. There. Only 4 directions to choose from. So what I'm just doing here is seeing if any of this main detail comes out. And it doesn't really. So I really have to exaggerate that. I can sort of get some lines out of it. You know, I'm not too worried about being a little bit sloppy at this point. So I can sort of make out a little bit of the detail on here. But when I do the body of the horse on here, I'll just push it up very carefully to the limit of what I carved in there. So with that though, what I'm wondering is, once again, let's go to our folks here. I have not cleaned any of these. These all need to get processed, but I do see a fair amount of the detailing on here sticking out. So it sticks out maybe, well, 1/2 millimeter to some of it. The rest of it's implied. And it's nowhere near that much here or on the tail. Now, did I have some, I can use this, I guess. Where's my water? One way to keep things looked after here, I had some scrap paper. I set out to start this. Okay. Dollar store. Don't need this receipt. Just to protect the rest of the body. A little bit of masking on there. So once again, doing supports, I have to do them manually. I have to learn how to get that right. The automatic picked up every lump of hair on here. And proceeded to add a support to it. So this is incredibly frustrating. Since I had eye surgery, it's very hard to focus at that range. where I focus quite nicely, it's too far away. And I don't want to constantly be hiding. We'll have some detail on that. Once that dries up, that will work. So all I got out of this here, let me just do some cleaning on here. One of the other things I missed or lost, I had stands for my brushes, and they work quite nicely. Thought about printing a stand. Maybe I'll experiment with that. But basically I use scrapped wood and a 2x4 with holes drilled in it and cut down by levels, and it worked very nicely. And the fact that I did it with the 2x4 meant that it had some mass to it, so it wasn't all that easy to tip over, whereas if I print anything, it won't have that mass. So, you know, we're getting a start there. I thought I had some modeling primer here. I have an automobile primer out in the workshop, and it's a filler primer, and I will try it on one of these parts. These are the bearing plates. I'll try it on there, but I'd rather not, because once again it has the large pigments in there, especially since it's a filler primer. I'll have to go to the stores and see if I can get something else for it, but I don't want to mask the details on there. So the pens sort of work. The acrylics that we went, our tube acrylics, definitely needs primer on it. Our airbrush paints will work very nicely. My Eternal Quest. What else do I have in here? I'm going to try this on the horse. Not the horses are yellow, but that I'm going to try that. These poor horses are going to get a little bit of everything. I guess I should try one of these. Since that's common. That's basics for the model types that we have here. Why I said this poor horse and that. Once again, this is from the hobby shops. There's a number of products that we have, or that I have around here for rusting things, because you know, we got a lot of metals out there. I'm going to see what we got here. I'll make sure. Nope. This one won't. This one is to rust metal. So I imagine there's some interesting chemicals in here. It's not for making plastics look like rust. So that will go away. We're not going to use that one. And here's a bottle of our grimy black. I just want to go through the process. But that's something else we don't have in here. I'm going to have to find some plastics. So I talked about, there's our top, it's peeled. This is a very old bottle. And the way I normally work it, I've cut a short tube and use this tube. Maybe I made it too short. I would use it to stir the paint. I made this one too short. barely gets in there. So I'm not doing much that way. Okay, that's a fail. I need more straws. I just have to go to Dairy Queen. Who's empty? So that's my paint there. And by doing it this way, I'm not putting in all these contaminants. By the way, the surface that I'm using, it's a big sheet of glass. Just happens to be in a closet at our last house. So once again, this is polyscale black. I'll go back to this brush with it. And where's our multicolor horse? Where did he go? There he is. And do the shoulder for him. Once again, looks like it needs the primer on there. So there's our lesson learned. Painting these guys, use a primer. I have to do some editing of the model because this one's a full male. So you can see it's a rather clear look to it. Dealing with the painted, might get a band, but you wouldn't get straight edges to it. Saw a great picture of a horse. It's had white markings. It was a dark horse with white markings, and white markings, if you looked at it, spelt horse. One of the horses I used to ride, one of its hooves was a different color than the rest. So, when I was a kid, I used to ride our neighbors had a painted little guy, but he had the multicolored eyes. Never trusted that horse. Okay, see if I have any whites here. Always like having a blaze on a horse. But our poor test subject here, it's not pretty, needs work, but is okay for today. You can start pulling out some detail on them. But as you can see, like these are the acrylics and they just washed over. So they do need something to stick to, and this resin just doesn't do it for them. See if I can fill any of that in. No, it's just washing it right off. So it's not adhering to it. You know, I'd have to let it dry fully for that. Now, the final step I do when I'm painting, I've been painting a lot, is all the brushes that I use. I put into a mixture of water, and it's not really mixed on. I brush a bar of plain Sunlight soap. As a matter of fact, when you're working with antiques and you need to clean them the way you clean them, one of the recommended ways is to use Sunlight soap regular, because Sunlight soap, that wasn't on, so I can turn that off or take that off. Paint all over my fingers, but such as life. Sunlight soap has very few additives, so that is a major benefit. So you use that. You can do it for antiques. After the flood, we were scrubbing things left, right, and center, because the everything gets covered in silt. Over there, I have a case of HO hoppers. The whole case went into the flood, so they're nicely weathered. They're individually numbered, but I have to change the wheel sets on all of them, so I haven't approached that yet. We will get there, though. So with the printing and the design, I've been printing these. What I have not done yet is design something very small and printed it. Now, from the museum, and once again, this came from the collection of Rick, I believe. You get all these detail parts, and you get these quite often. Different kits, you get different items there. First, to see what it is. Yeah, that's the one I wanted. Now this is HO scale, but it's a little hand roller. I don't know, I can't tell from here how focused that is. And this is where I have to work on my cameras, because this is the sort of thing that I want to be able to print. And I want to be able to show it to you guys. So I haven't, as I said, attempted something like that yet. Maybe I will do that today, because you get shovels. This looks like the inside of a car or a buggy. It's a buggy. Yeah. Wagon wheels. When you're dealing with the layout that is pre-World War I, then most transportation for folks was by using the horse and buggy wagons for transportation. Actually, watching a documentary on World War II, it's hard to believe how much horses were used in World War II. You think of it being all the trucks, and you think of the Germans and the Blitzkrieg and that. Well, yeah, the Blitzkrieg, those troops with the trucks and the tanks and the motorbikes, they all went in fast. That's why they had that equipment. But everyone else walked in, marched, and carried everything by horse. A lot of things were horse-drawn or horse-carried. And it's not even then. During early days of the Afghan War, American special forces were going in on mules to get into some of the more remote areas. One fellow said it was very strange. You go in a mule, and you're dealing with the sort of tribal existence that is the way they live out there. And then you're on a satellite phone calling in stealth fighters to, or stealth bombers to hit strategic targets. So, yeah, calling in by a satellite, a stealth bomber, while you're sitting by your meal. So they got used all along. But anyways, pre-World I, everybody used them. So the streets were designed for it. My O-scale layout has a small town that's getting built beside my head here. It will have a few town buildings, not very big. It's O-scale. Where this camera and these monitors are set up is supposed to be part of that town. Since I got into 3D printing and put in this workstation here, I'm going to have to reconsider that. But the rest of it, well, the first loop around and to the other side of me is where the horses and the cattle are. It's going to be one little stop there, a milk stop. A very simple platform place where they get the milk cans. Milk cans are on my design list. I have to get a picture. There's a lot of them out there on the internet, but my mom still has the milk can from the family farm. You had your cans and you put your name on the side, and in those days you'd collect cans at various areas, and then those cans get returned to the people. So I'm going to model the family milk can, but fill a build plate with those and scatter them around. So it's just a milk stop, so a rural area. And on the other side of the wall will actually be a small seaside town. The key location for it is a church, and the church is being modeled after a small church that shows up at the very end of Hello Dolly, the movie. And we have a church like that just down the road, but I just found out that it's about to be demolished. So I have to, once the rain stops, hopefully it'll still be standing so I can get some pictures of it. But so it's mostly rural stuff. So out in these rural areas, if there's people, there's going to be the horses, there's going to be the wagons. The final stop for the line is actually a hotel, but you just see the platform for it. But there'll be wagons there to take folks' luggage up to the hotel proper. So wagon wheels and wagons are high on the list. There is a reason I've been focusing on these horses, and I will be getting back into DAS. What is in the works right now is just a section on going through positioning and changing the horses within DAS, and I hope to have that finished tomorrow. We'll see how that goes, and we'll get there. Anyways, we tried the paints. They're going to have to dry. I'm going to go find some primer, and we'll prime some of these pieces. I do have a couple of fails here of the rings. We'll get some primer on that and then see how they take the paints after the primer's on. So there's no 3D Hangout this week. We're every other week. The next one will be hosted by Joe Mike, and I did have a message on what the topic would be, and I can't remember what he chose, but it should be on the Facebook page for that, and that's F3D. I gave him a hard time last time. He couldn't remember it. Okay, F3DPCH-public on Facebook. So the let's see if he's posted it on there. And yes. Hang on. Sorry about that. The topic's not posted on the Facebook page, but that'll be December 1st. So come join us. That's 10 p.m. Eastern on the Friday, but not this week, the following Friday. And I will be putting out more content here, and looks like my Wednesdays may have freed up, so I'll plan on being back live next Wednesday at 10 a.m. Pacific time, and I will get some postings out there in the meantime. So once again, thank you for tuning in. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe, hit the like button, and go over to Joe Mike's site. Take a look at what he's doing with his contest if you haven't already done so, and I'll make sure as soon as this goes off air, I'll add his link into the notes here. Also have on there link to Chris at Practical Printing, because I followed his series on the Moya build and the light bucket build very carefully, and so encourage you to go along if you're interested in getting into SLA printing. I know now that SLA prints will work for what I want to do with the trains, something that I just couldn't get there with the FDM. The FDM printer has rolls still, but it won't be for doing this sort of stuff. So that's about it. Be safe out there, and I'll see you next week.